Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh. Semua sihat
Waalaikumsalam doktor. Alhamdulillah sihat.
Alhamdulillah. Okay, insyaAllah. Today we will go back to chapter 9, Islamic fiscal policy, because there were some subtopics that we missed. So let's go back to Islamic fiscal policy. Okay, when we discuss Islamic fiscal policy, there are two sides. One is the money coming in, or the income or the revenue of the government. So that's number one, duit masuk. And number two, duit keluar, outpayment or the expenditure. So when the government wants to spend money, the government needs revenue, right? Just like us, when we want to spend, we need money. So the government also needs the revenue in order to do the expenditure or the spending. So Islam gives a certain principles on how the government should spend, how the government should spend the money, or how the government should do the expenditure. So Islamic principles of government expenditure, some of the principles include moderation in budgeting. So perbelanjaan sederhana dan berhemah. So Islamic guiding principles on government expenditure is number one, moderation in budgeting. Budget yang sederhana dan berhemah. In the Islamic economic system, government expenditure is based on its revenue. So if the revenue is less, then the expenditure is less also. If there is an increase in revenue, then the government can increase the expenditure. So the expenditure is based on the revenue. So if the government do the expenditure based on the revenue, means that the revenue equals expenditure, then the government will have the balanced budget. Balanced budget occurs when the government expenditure is equal to the government revenue. And if possible, Islam encourages the government to have surplus budget. Surplus budget means the revenue is more than the expenditure. Then we have surplus. So if you have more income than you spend, then you have a surplus. So the key feature or the key character the key feature or the key character in Islamic economic system is moderation. Perbelanjaan yang sederhana tanpa membazir. Number two, the guiding principle number two, priority in spending. So in Islamic fiscal policy, government expenditure must be based on priorities. Um, Fiqhul awliyat. And the government should spend on the most on the area that is of highest priority. Spend on the um, daruriyat first, necessity. Then if the daruriyat is fulfilled, then the government can do expenditure on hajiyat. And then after hajiyat is fulfilled, then the government has an option to spend on the um tahsiniyat. Okay, so spending by the Islamic government is based on maqasid sharia, priorities of government expenditure are given to priorities of government expenditure are given to daruriyat. First, daruriyat or the necessities. Okay, first the government has to fulfill the daruriyat or necessities, and there are, according to Islamic scholars, there are 5 daruriyat: uh, ad-din or faith, nafs, life, al-aql, intellect, progeny, and naslu, and wealth, mal. So first, the government must make sure that there is enough spending to cover the 5 necessities: deen, nafs, aql, and naslu, and mal. Faith, life, intellect, progeny, and wealth. So the priority for the Islamic government is to make allocations for expenditures to fulfill these 5 daruriyat. Daruriyatul Hamsa, the 5 daruriyat. Okay, let's talk about government revenue. Government expenditures are financed by government revenues. So in order to do the spending, government needs money. Where does the government get the money from? There are many sources of revenue in an Islamic there are many sources of revenue in an Islamic fiscal system. Number one is taxation. The sources of government revenue from an Islamic perspective include taxation, zakat, jizya, government service fee, equity financing, public enterprises, haraj, al-ushur, waqaf, and sadaqah, and other sources. So the first one is taxation. Taxation is a major source of government revenue in a modern Islamic state. The government's right to impose taxes is justified by its responsibility to fulfill the needs of the citizens. So the government has to do expenditures to fulfill the needs of the people. The government needs to build schools, hospitals, roads, railroads, and other facilities for the people. So the government needs money. That's why in Islam, taxation is allowed or permitted. But the tax must be collected from the rich, right? The bulk of tax revenue should come from the rich. Most of the tax are collected from the rich. The poor people should not be burdened with paying tax. So the government collect tax from mostly from the rich, and then use the tax to provide facilities for all the people. All right. Any question? Nur Hazira. The second source of revenue is zakat. Zakat is an obligatory financial levy. Zakat is wajib. It's an obligatory financial levy on all surplus wealth and agricultural income of the Muslims. So zakat is collected from the surplus unit, from those people who have surplus wealth, and redistributed to the have-nots, those people who do not have enough to cover their basic needs. So zakat aims to provide financial support to specific categories of people. There are 8 asnaf of zakat, as mentioned in the Quran. Zakat is charged at varying rates and collected by the state. State here means the institutions appointed by the government. For example, in Kedah, zakat is collected by Lembaga Zakat Negeri Kedah. Okay. The rate of zakat is 2.5% on all financial assets and stock in trade or business, and 10% on all agricultural produce purely dependent on rain. For example, padi. If the if padi is raised and use rain as a major source of irrigation, then the rate of zakat is 10%. But the rate of zakat is 5% on produce of artificially irrigated cultivation. For example, padi is raised using machine. Okay, padi is raised and irrigated by water coming from a machine or coming from man, manusia yang apa ni, guna tenaga manusia untuk menyediakan air untuk menanam padi, atau binatang or animal. So if the irrigation for padi uses man-made machine or manpower or animal power, then the rate is 5%. On the rate of zakat is 5%. Okay. Any question? Muhammad Shauki. Zakat is simple to administer. The money paid is proportionate to the amount of wealth or income. It's quite simple to calculate zakat. Uh, and zakat could be used as a major instrument for providing social security, eradicating poverty, curbing excessive income disparities, and stimulating economic activities by transferring some purchasing power from those who have surplus to the have-nots, those who do not have enough. Okay, jadi sebahagian pada harta orang kaya atau orang yang mempunyai lebihan kekayaan dipindahkan kepada mereka yang tidak mampu. Jadi mereka yang tidak mampu mempunyai kuasa untuk membeli. There are two types of zakat, zakatul fitri and zakat al-mal. Zakat al-fitri paid in the month of Ramadan by the leader of the family for himself and also for his dependents. Tanggungan dia, anak-anak dan isteri-isteri. The main purpose of zakat al-fitri is for the consumption of the poor during Eid al-Fitri. And the second type of zakat is zakat al-mal or zakat on properties, zakat harta. Zakat al-mal is imposed on wealth or property that reach So zakat al-mal is imposed on properties that reach a specified limit, or we call nisab. So zakat al-mal is imposed on properties that reach the specified limit on nisab. And also it has to reach haul or specified period of ownership of haul. Haul is 1 lunar year, 1 year of Hijriah calendar. However, there are certain types of assets like agricultural produce or agricultural products and zakat on income that do not require haul. Means that, for example, paddy, okay, when the paddy is harvested, zakat on paddy is paid immediately after the harvest. There is no need to wait for haul. If it reach the nisab, paddy harvested is paid zakat at the time of the harvest. It's the same as income. Income zakat is paid at the time of the receipt of income. So if an employee or workers receive income, he or she must pay zakat immediately after receiving the income. There's no need to wait for howl. If the income reach a resort, and resort is counted as um, so it has to reach a certain resort, and after reaching resort, an employee who receive income should pay zakat immediately because income zakat does not require howl. However, most other properties require nisab and howl. Any question? Ada soalan? Wahida, Hamdi, senyap je. Functions of zakat in Islamic fiscal policy. So what are the functions of zakat in Islamic fiscal policy? There are many functions, but today we will discuss two functions. Zakat serves the following functions in an Islamic fiscal policy. Number one, as allocative efficiency. Zakat is collected or zakat is paid by people who have surplus of wealth and distributed to 8 asnaf of zakat. Right. So Islamic fiscal policy emphasizes the disadvantaged group of population. There are people who are poor and needy, papa dan kedana, miskin dan papa, who are in need. And zakat distribution to the 8 categories of recipients or asnaf helps to fulfill the allocative efficiency of the income distribution. So people, there are certain groups of, of people in the population who are unable to work, who do not have income. So they don't have any money, they don't have any purchasing power. Without zakat, they would not be able to spend. But with zakat, they are able to spend, so the wealth is redistributed from the rich to the poor so that the poor can have the ability to purchase. So we say that the poor, after receiving zakat, have the purchasing power to purchase goods and services. So Islamic fiscal policy put a great emphasis on the disadvantaged group of the population, and zakat is distributed to 8 categories of recipients, help to fulfill the allocative efficiency of income distribution. Functions number 2, redistribution of income. Zakat distribution to the categories of recipients or asnaf helps to redistribute income from the rich to the poor and the needy. So when the uh, when zakat is paid by the the uh, the rich group of the population distributed to the poor and the needy. So the poor and the needy now have income that they can use to fulfill their needs, and so income is redistributed. So some of the properties, that belong to the poor, that belong to the rich, some of them, some of the properties that belong to the rich, the poor has the right. 2.5% of the properties belong to the poor. So by by fulfilling the obligation of paying zakat, the money or the wealth is redistributed from the poor, from the rich population, from the rich people to the poor and needy. So let's discuss the impact of zakat on consumption. Zakat could increase consumer expenditure in an Islamic economy. Okay, because by giving zakat, the poor and the needy can purchase goods and services. So uh, the money given to the poor and the needy using zakat will be spent. They will use the money to spend, to buy food, to buy drink, and to buy the necessities. So zakat could increase consumer expenditure. In Islamic jurisprudence, zakat is defined as a compulsory specific amount of money paid by every adult, mentally stable, baligh, free, and financially able Muslim, male and female, to the specific categories of people, to the asnaf. Zakat can increase consumption when the zakat recipients or asnaf use the money given to them as zakat to purchase goods and services. Without zakat, they cannot buy goods and services. With zakat, they can buy or purchase goods and services, so that will increase the consumption. If you remember, consumption is defined as the expenditure by consumers on final goods and services. All right. Now, the impact of zakat on investment. Zakat could also increase investment because an increase in consumption will lead to an increase in the demand for goods and services. So when the demand for goods and services increase, that will motivate producers, suppliers to increase the business expenditure or business investment. When the when there is an increase in aggregate demand, aggregate supply uh, is expected to increase because producers anticipate that the profit will increase, so they will supply more final goods and services. So zakat uh, has an impact to increase consumption and also to increase investment. Miss Araya, any question? Okay, so the first source of government revenue is taxation. The second is zakat. And the third source of government revenue is called jizya. What is a jizya? Jizya was the tax that the non-Muslims adults living in an Islamic state had to pay in the early days of Islam because of exemption from military duties. So during the early days of Islamic government, non-Muslims did not have to fight in the war uh, against other countries, against non-Muslims from other countries. So the non-Muslims living in the Islamic State had to pay jizya. So at that time, the government had to ensure security. So the jizya is used to ensure security concerning the lives of non-Muslims and the properties of non-Muslims living in the Islamic State. Number four is the number four, the fourth sources, the fourth source of government revenue is government service fees. Government provides electricity, water, and other facilities, uh, and so the government charge certain fee. So we call government service fees. Government provide roads, so we have to pay road tax. Government provide electricity, so we have to pay electricity bills. Government provide water, so the people have to pay fees on the uh, water, or we call water bill. So government service fees are fees charged by the government on the economic services provided by the government to the people. Government service fees are fees charged by the government on the economic services, on the services provided by the government to the people. The fees charged should not exceed the cost of services provided. For example, electricity bill janganlah mahal sangat. Bil air janganlah mahal sangat. Yuran itu tidak sepatutnya melebihi pada kos perkhidmatan yang diberikan. Number five, equity financing. Equity financing refers to projects for which the public is invited to participate through shares on a profit and loss sharing basis. Priority should be given to local investors. The government could also embark on business. The public or the people are invited to buy shares, so the profit will be redistributed to the shareholders or the people. Okay, number six is public enterprises. The government also have certain business we call public enterprises. Public enterprises refers to business public enterprises refer to business firms owned by the government. Sometimes there are natural resources like petrol, or other natural resources that contribute significant revenue to the government. In Malaysia, the government through its own government-linked companies, Petronas, have the right um, to do the mining of the uh, petroleum and then process and resold as finished products uh, to the people and also to export to foreign countries. So in Malaysia, for example, petroleum contributes significant revenue to the government. And the haraj is tax on land. Haraj is a tax imposed on land that becomes the property of the Muslim government. Tax rates depended on the quality of land, such as the fertility level, irrigation requirement, etc. This haraj is no longer in existence. This haraj refers to tax levied on land that was uh, that um, that the government took um, and became the property of Muslim government. Okay, al-ushur refers to tax on certain merchandise or certain goods and services that are traded among different countries. It's like the export and import tax. So al-ushur is collected from three different groups of traders. Traders from foreign countries, 10% tax. Non-Muslim local traders, 5%, and local Muslim traders, 2.5%. And then another source of revenue is waqaf. Waqaf is another source of revenue for an Islamic government. Waqaf is a charitable endowment and it signifies a foundation set up by keeping a property in perpetual existence and making its income available for specified beneficiaries. Waqaf plays an economic and social role. So in Malaysia, Waqaf must be registered under the State Islamic Religious Council. So Waqaf means that Waqif or the donor of Waqaf, the persons who give Waqaf is called Waqif. So the Waqif, he or she donates Mawquf. Mawquf is the property, for example, land, building, or even cash, or any types of Waqaf. So Waqif, the donor, gives Mawquf, the things, uh, and the Mawquf or the Waqaf is perpetual, means it lasts, and then it is irrevocable. It means once the Mawquf is given to Waqaf Foundation, the owner or the Waqif cannot take it back. Okay, and it is inalienable. Means the Mawquf or the property that is given to Waqaf institution is inalienable. It means it cannot be sold, it cannot be transferred, and it cannot become It cannot be inherited. So in the Islamic government of the past, wakaf was part of the government revenue. However, in modern Islamic countries like Malaysia, wakaf is not part of the federal government revenue. Wakaf is put under the State Islamic Religious Council under each sultan or king. Dia terletak di bawah kuasa sultan atau raja di Malaysia lah. Okay, sadaqah. Sadaqah is also a part of revenue for Islamic government in the past, pada masa lalu lah. Sadaqah is very simple. It's a non-obligatory charity, sunat saja, bukan wajib. So it is a moral obligation on every Muslim to give sadaqah to those in need. There are certain funds, sadaqah funds that are launched where people can donate. Siapa ada banyak, bagi banyak lah. Siapa ada sikit, bagi sikit lah. So sadaqah is a moral obligation on every Muslim to give sadaqah to those in need. The money contributed for sadaqah is for the benefit of the needy. Nak nampak orang miskin, kita boleh bagi direct pun boleh lah. Okay, any question? Okay. Today's topic is important because it's in the final. Okay, tanya soalan. Siapa ada soalan?
Doktor,
Ya.
kenapa al-usur tu dia ada 3 kategori?
Oh, bagus soalan tu. Kenapa ada tiga kategori? Asalnya dia ada satu kategori saja. Al-ushur means 1/10. Bahasa Arabnya, literally, al-ushur means 1/10. Secara bahasanya, al-ushur maksudnya 1/10 ataupun 10%. Okay. So, al-ushur adalah satu cukai yang dikenakan kepada barang-barang yang diimport daripada luar negara. Jadi peniaga daripada luar negara yang mengeksport barang ke negara Islam atau dengan lain perkataan negara Islam yang mengimport barang daripada luar negara, so barang-barang tersebut dikenakan al-ushur 10%. Asalnya 10%. Tetapi dia ada 3 jenis atau 3 kumpulan peniaga. Jadi kerajaan Islam memberi pengurangan al-ushur walaupun asalnya 10%. Okay, tapi kerajaan Islam memberi pengurangan. The Islamic government give a cut, bagi pengurangan, bagi potongan al-ushur kepada non-Muslim local traders. Kalau daripada luar negara masuk, kita panggil macam cukai import lah, 10%. Tapi kalau ekspor, okay, kalau nak ekspor, okay, bukan Islam, dia ekspor ke luar negara, so kena al-ushur 5%. Kalau orang Islam tempatan mengekspor ke luar negara, so barang-barang yang diekspor tu dikenakan 25%. Jadi 5% dan 5% ni untuk macam cukai ekspor lah. Dan untuk peniaga bukan Islam 25% macam cukai ekspor kepada peniaga Islam yang mengekspor ke luar negara. So al-usyur walaupun asalnya 10%, okay, 10% untuk import, maksud untuk barang yang dibawa masuk ke dalam negara. Tapi kalau ekspor dia kurang sikit lah. Okay. 5% untuk barang yang diekspor oleh peniaga bukan Islam, 25% untuk barang yang diekspor oleh peniaga tempatan Islam. Okey, soalan lain? Tanya, yang ni masuk exam ni. Any other question? So hari ini kita discuss tajuk, kita balik pada tajuk Islamic Fiscal Policy. Kita bincang dua tajuk, iaitu Islamic Principles of Government Expenditure and Sources of Government Revenue in Islamic Fiscal Policy. Tajuk ni masuk dalam exam. Nur Azlina, Nur Syafawati,
Ya,
ada soalan?
tadi dah tanya dah.
Oh, tanya dah. Nur Syafika, dah tanya ke? Dah tanya belum? Okay, if there is no question, that's all the class for today. Inshallah, the carry mark will come out next week, inshallah. And for final exam, the final exam will start on 18th of April. Okay. Minggu exam bermula 18 April sampai 18 Mei. Jadi tarikh untuk final exam akan ditentukan dan kemungkinan dalam minggu pertama final exam lah. Saya akan bagi tahu kemudian lah. Okey.
Okey, Doktor.
Ya, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.